Hi, my name is Fred Conrad. I'm Community Garden and Orchard Manager. And today we're going to be thinning a few trees. This is a plum, which desperately needs to be thinned. It blossomed prolifically this spring. We happened to get lucky and not get caught by a frost. And so the fruit is so prolific that the weight of the fruit is now pulling the tree down and risking breaking the branches. As these expand with water, they're very heavy now. I wish you could lift this up. There's a lot of heft. And if the branch breaks off before they're ripe, then the tree is damaged and the fruit is lost. So we are going to try to remove some of the fruit so that what's left matures and is harvestable. There's also the problem with, in a situation like this where there's that much fruit at the end of a branch, trees are not as good at moving sugars and energy around the plant as you would think. So what we want to do is make it possible for the tree to only have a sustainable amount of fruit on it that can ripen, mature. This is okay up to here, but when you get down to the end, it is just completely overdone. So we are going to, by hand, remove some of the fruit. And we are going to remove, like in this case, the one from the tip and the one from this cluster, to leave this one that's further back on the branch. I hope you can see that. The branch is stronger, closer to the stem, and we're going to leave that one on the cluster. To avoid knocking off fruit that we don't want to knock off from the plant, we're going to ask someone to help us, in this case, Kalia, to help us hold this so that we don't inadvertently knock off more fruit than we want to. The right spacing for airflow, sunlight, and sugar is about 4 inches. So we don't want to take it all off. We want to harvest it. So we're going to try to leave as much as we can, but maintain the health of the tree. I'm collecting the fruit that we're taking off because we're going to compost that in the compost bin over there. We're not going to leave it on the ground. We don't want any disease spores, fungus, possibly curculios, insects that may have been laying eggs or attacking the fruit, to be able to just move from the discarded fruit up to the plant. Also discourage animals from finding the fruit on the ground and then looking up. Yeah.
So you're still too
close? If they're touching, they're too close.
Okay.
I mean, the spacing should be, like, ideally it would be like this. There would be, you know, room to put some fingers in between there. Plum trees tend to grow like a vase. So that branch before fruit set was like this. It's an amazing amount of weight already. Okay, so we're gonna lower the branch, go back and let the weight of the tree go back onto the branch. I'm also taking off a few damaged fruits here. This fruit has scab on it. That's a fungus that just basically, it's a blemish. It's a mostly cosmetic problem for the plant. That fruit actually would probably ripen up, but it looks terrible. Most people are not going to want to eat that, and it may be an entrance point for other problems and diseases, and it could theoretically rot the entire fruit. But on the other hand, it may just grow out and it might still be edible, but we don't want it on there when there are better, healthier options. Here we are, these fruits are touching each other. If one of them gets any kind of fungal disease or begins to rot, the rot will reach the other fruit in that cluster. And once again, the tree itself probably is not going to be able to support all of those fruits maturing. So we're just going to take all. So I took out 3 out of 6, so I took out half. We're going to move it away from the trees. We're going to put it in the compost, and we're going to make sure that we cover it up with other brown matter so that the spores do not become airborne and can't make their way back to the trees. We're just going to put this in the compost. It'll turn back into beautiful, rich soil. And then when we put it back down, you can see that lifted up 6-8 inches from where it was hanging before. I believe that branch has enough strength now to make it through the end of the fruiting season. This is actually because we had a great spring. This tree is healthy, it's producing a lot. This is the ideal scenario, to have a fruit tree that is producing so much fruit that you need to thin it. Okay, this nectarine has gotten quite tall. We pruned it we took the top out of it this winter, but there's still fruit that is out of our reach by hand, standing on the ground. So we brought with us today this orchard ladder. It's a special tool, it's specially designed. A typical A-frame step ladder has 4 legs, and it has to be on a completely flat plane, a single plane. And it really has to be on a horizontally level plane to be stable and safe. Where this ladder, because it's a tripod, it has only 3 points of contact with the soil. So it can be in an irregular surface and it can be on a slope and still be stable. So this ladder has got a flared end on these 2 points, and then that third leg, the telescoping leg, which is adjustable, can be raised up and down depending on the terrain, gives you that ability to create a safe climbing surface for you. Callia is going to climb up. All right, so Callia is replicating what we did on the plum tree. The fruit that is so close that it's actually making physical contact with another fruit needs to be thinned off. You know, ideally there would be 3, 4, up to 6 inches between fruit on the stem. That branch is weighted down now, so it's heavy. I think it's okay. The tree is already starting to throw fruit off because it can't handle what it's got. So the tree is throwing, and Callia is going to help the tree by removing the damaged fruit and the least desirable fruit, and leaving the best and the ones that are on the sturdiest frames so that they have the best chance of maturing. And that's probably mechanical damage. It just was, when it was smaller branches and twigs from the plant damaged the fruit. Also, we at Foodwell Alliance, we don't recommend planting peaches and nectarines because they are soft and very desirable. There are so many insects and animals that eat them that it's actually hard to get a crop off of a nectarine or a peach. The whole tree is really loaded, just absolutely loaded with fruit. We pruned it during the winter. We were careful about how we pruned it to leave the fruiting spurs and the potentially blooming branches on the tree. And then the biggest thing is that we were very lucky with the frost cycle this spring. A single frost, if it's a light freeze frost, will take off only about 10% of the blooms, but anything below like 25 degrees and lower, it'll take off like 90% of the blossoms, and then they're gone. Okay, so we're looking at a pear tree now that we pruned this winter. Pear trees are very vertical trees with a tight growth habit, so they grow straight up. They lack some of the wide branching that apples have that make it possible for apple trees to handle more weight. This tree has, because of the weight of the fruit, has completely laid down. It isn't broken yet, but the top of the tree is now laying, this had been 20 feet in the air, is now lying on the ground because of the weight of the fruit. What needs to happen here is after we thin it, we really need to put in something on the other side of that fence to be able to pull it back up. Unlike those branches that were hanging to take the weight off, they can come back up. This entire tree is laying tipped over. So the base of the tree is here. It was growing straight vertically among these these need to be trimmed off again. These are suckers that need to go away. It was straight, and then just in the past 2 weeks, the weight of the fruit just little by little pulled the tree over. Okay, we're gonna tag team this one again because it's heavy, and I think one of us needs to hold it up so that the other person can see what they're doing. Now these, they have to be twisted and pulled off. These are a little different than the plums and the nectarines are stone fruit. They don't attach as rigidly to the stalk, but this is a pome fruit, and well, I can feel the weight off already. And they are much more physically, structurally attached to the plant. When you're pruning apple trees, pear trees that have been neglected for a few years, you can only take off about 30% of the total of the tree before you start to damage it. So we pruned off as much as we could without hurting the tree, and then we stopped, and now it still bore so much fruit that this has happened, the tree. So Asian pears bloom along the stem. They don't bloom on the tips the way that the nectarine and the plum do. The Asian pears bloom on the stem, so you don't have that problem of thin branches snapping off, but you've got the problem of the large branch just being weighted too heavily. Plants store a lot of carbohydrates in the stems and the twigs. People think it's all in the roots, the sugars and stuff like that. It's really, most of what the tree is storing is up here. So when you take off too much of the top, the plant has actually a very hard time getting started again in the spring. Just that thinning that we did now actually lifted the tip off the ground. So, okay, that's probably good to me. I think that branch is a big branch. We left six fruits on there. I think it can take it. We'll find out.